Hey folks, welcome to our next lesson. We're still working with parallel and perpendicular lines, except instead of just worrying about the slope, we're going to work with the y-intercept as well. And it's going to use the tiniest bit of algebra, but not a lot. We should be good to go. And I'm also going to show you some nice easy ways to check it using Desmos. Some of you may already know it, some of you might not. That's okay. Let's take a look. So our aim today is how do we find the equations of parallel and perpendicular lines in slope-intercept form. As a review, your slope-intercept form is what we've been working with for a while and what you've seen in a lot of your algebra classes too. It's y equals mx plus b. Now remember, this is our slope, that's our y-intercept, again you've seen that. The stuff we covered most recently is that for parallel lines the slope is the same. For perpendicular lines the slope is a negative reciprocal. Remember, the negative reciprocal means it goes from negative to positive or positive to negative, sorry, and the fraction flips. So here's an example. Find the equation of the line parallel to y equals negative 4/3 x minus 1 and going through that point. Now, that implies that there's only one line that'll do it. So we need to find the exact equation. Well, the slope here, m, we can do that, and it's parallel, so we're going to need the same slope. So I already know that it has to be m equals to negative 4/3. Well, now I have to find b, and that's the slightly weird part. So we're going to actually set up an equation using m and using these coordinates and solve for b. It's a lot more annoying than it sounds. So I know it's y equals mx plus b. Well, I know y here. It's my y coordinate, so 2 equals, I know m here, it's the slope, negative 4/3. I know x here, it's the x coordinate of negative 6. The only thing I don't know is b plus b. Well, now this is just an equation. We can solve out equations. We know how to do it. So we're going to stick with 2. This is going to be positive 24 over 3. My co-host, the cat, has just left us. Plus b. We can simplify that a little bit. That's going to be 2 is equal to 8 plus b. Well, subtract 8 over to the other side, and you get negative 6 is equal to b. This side to positive, you don't need to bring it down. So, last but not least, we're going to throw it all together. Y equals our original slope of negative 4/3 x, and then minus 6. And we're done. Notice our final answer doesn't have any points for x or y because slope-intercept form just leaves them as x and y as well, just like you've seen before. Now, it can be pretty helpful as we go through for a nice way to check our answer. For that, I'm using Desmos' calculator. I just plugged in my first equation here, and we know the answer to the first one was y equals negative 4/3 x minus 6. I'm going to plug it in here. Y equals negative 4/3 x minus 6. These two lines are parallel, never going to touch, and it's a nice way to check our work. We can also see if it goes through the point, negative 6 comma 2, and it does. That point is here in green, so we have this blue line parallel to the original going through that point. So that was for parallel. We know that parallel lines always have the same slope. That's why they have the same slope here. Now we're going to take a look at perpendicular. Remember, perpendicular lines differ with the slope in two ways. First, the sign switches. If it was positive, it's now negative. If it was negative, it's now positive. Second, the fraction just flips. What was in the numerator is now in the denominator. What was in the denominator is now in the numerator. Keep that in mind, and let's take a look. Here's our second example. You might want to pause and write it in. We're finding the equation of a line perpendicular that's important, to this line and going through this point. Now remember, if it's perpendicular, the slope is going to be a negative reciprocal. So just like in this one where we found the slope first, we're going to find the slope first here. The original slope is 3/4, so the negative part turns this positive to a negative, and it takes this 3/4 and flips it to 4/3. The negative does this, the reciprocal does this. Well, now, it's the same as it was before in our first example. We have a slope, we have points, we're just going to plug it in. So we're doing y equals mx plus b, and we're going to plug in everything but the b and solve. Our y here is -8. Our m here is -4/3. I should put the equal sign. Our x here is -3. And then our b here we don't know. Well, now we're just going to solve it out. -8 is equal to, that's going to be -4 times -3, so positive 12 plus b. Simplify that fraction. -8 is equal to 4 plus b. And then we just subtract the 4 to the other side. We get -12 is equal to b. Well, now let's just make our equation. Y equals, the slope here is just -4/3. Remember, x stays as a variable. It has to. Last but not least, we just solved for b. It's -12. That's our answer. We're just going to do the same way of checking. So we know that we got y is equal to -4/3 x minus 12. And we know that it has to go through the point -3, -8. Well, I might have to move Desmos around a little bit, but that's okay. This is our original line. This is our new line. Notice they meet at a right angle. And here's our point, -3/8. The new line goes through the point and perpendicular to the original. Easy check. So those were our two examples. You're good to go. Give that delta math a shot now. Remember, you just need to get 5. Doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. Otherwise, you can see me during office hours. That's 10 to 11 or 2 to 3. And you're more than welcome to ask any questions there. Stay safe, folks, and I'll talk to you soon.